So, as I continue this series, now, when I did the Hurricanes, I also talked about the Whalers. For me to talk about Colorado without talking about Quebec would feel wrong to me. And there are players who overlapped. Now, remember, these are my favorites. So when you say, where is Patrick Roy? I'm going to do a spoiler right now. Patrick Roy is not my favorite Avalanche goalie there ever was. He's not it. I know he is for a lot of Avalanche fans, and that's good for them. He was never my favorite goalie on any level. He was the best goalie, didn't make him my favorite. So is he the best? Is he the best goalie that Colorado ever had? Absolutely. Is he my favorite? No. So let's do the Avs first. And I try to make sure I get a left wing, a right wing, and a center. Valeri Kamensky came over when he was older. I don't think that his career totals are what they would have been if he'd come over at 20. And if he had... there were injuries that took place and whatnot. I like Kamensky a lot, though. I don't think he gets enough credit for his time with Colorado and for what he did. And then he went to the Rangers. And he was one of those overpriced Rangers. Probably a career mistake for him. At center, I did... Joe Sakic is actually in black ink, because he's kind of both. But he did his winning and his best hockey playing while he was a member of Colorado. He was a damn good player in Quebec too, I get that, but for me, I identify Sakic as an Av. I identify him as being Colorado's best player. And that's probably an age thing. On the right side, I remember seeing him for the first time at, I believe it was in Olympic Games, and I'd never heard of him before, Milan Hajduk. And I remember kind of having fun with his last name, and you know, it was kind of a fun-sounding name. I'm like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen with him. And then next thing you know, he's in Colorado, and he's a really good player. And this is one of those, for people who say that not having NHLers in the Olympic Games is going to wreck it. No, you find diamonds in the rough. You find guys that probably wouldn't have made the team if all the NHLers go over. Hajduk is a damn good player. Was a damn good player. And he was one of my favorite Colorado Avalanche when he was there. On the blue line, he grew on me over the years, Adam Foote. Big physical, bruising blue liner. Of course, his son Cal got drafted this year. Adam, damn fine defenseman. And he was truly terrifying for opposing teams to have to deal with. And the other blue liner I picked is Sandis Ozolinsh. Ozolinsh was always a guy that I really liked Sandis, and when we get to San Jose in this thing, I'll probably pick Sandis for San Jose too. It wouldn't surprise me, because he was just, I really liked him. I thought he was really good offensively. He was kind of a disaster defensively at times, but man, was he fun to watch. And quite the booming shot, and it was between him and John Michael Lyles, and John Michael Lyles has always been a guy I cheered for too, but I went with Sandis, because why not? And in net, the recently gone via the expansion draft, Calvin Pickard. Because I'm not a Varlamov fan, I was not a fan of Patrick Roy, I was never a big guy with Abbotsford, Budai. I've basically, Colorado's goaltending, I've always looked at their goaltenders and either disliked the personality or just thought, and that's just a personal opinion. I think Varlamov had one really, really, really good year, and he's struggled since then to replicate it. So, in losing Pickard, they're hoping that he can replicate it. But Calvin Pickard was a guy that I liked because he wasn't drafted in the first round. He wasn't... I know Chet was drafted in the first round, and that's his brother. And Chet was seen as the more talented of the two. And I remember looking at their stats and thinking, well, yeah, but look what Calvin plays behind. I'm pretty sure it was the Seattle Thunderbirds, and it was bad. So Calvin's used to playing behind teams that aren't great in front of him. And then he re-solidified himself as my favorite Avs goalie when he took over the Vegas Golden Knights Twitter account 2 days ago, I believe, and answered questions for fans. And just really nice, decent guy. And I like him. So sue me. Let's get into Quebec. And when we talk about the Quebec Nordiques, I have two left wingers. Anton Stastny. Everybody remembers Peter. Anton, his brother. They were fantastic. They knew how to play like Sedins before there was Sedins, and they had a little bit of an edge there too because they went through hell to get to the NHL. The Stastny brothers went through a lot, and I had actually toyed with the idea of having it just Anton, Peter, and Marion as my favorite Quebec line because they were magic together. They didn't play a long time together, the three of them in Quebec, but Anton and Peter and Marion had natural chemistry. The rumor at the time was that when Marion came over, Peter and Anton started just listening to Marion because in their culture at the time, it was the oldest brother kind of says what goes and what doesn't. So life became a lot less fun for Anton and Peter once Marion came over. But yeah, Peter Stastny is absolutely, hands down, he was my favorite Quebec Nordique in the mid-'80s. I love the Stastny line so much. Everybody else was all gushing over Gretzky and Messier and the Oilers. I loved the Nordiques. I loved everything about them, including their fighting with Montreal in the playoffs standpoint. Any team that wants to brawl with Montreal, be it Hartford or Quebec, they get moved. Bench clearing brawls against Montreal means you get moved. It's not very nice of Montreal to do that. But the Stastnys were really good players. Really enjoyed them. And yeah, I had to go with two left wingers because Michel Goulet, who was a fantastic goal scorer, and he had a great career. He went on to extend that career with Chicago and hit some totals with Chicago, some career totals he should have hit in Quebec. It was a shame when he left Quebec. It was a shame when Peter left Quebec too. Should have finished his career as a Nordique. Michel should have finished his career as a Nordique. It's just one of those things, I guess. I get very attached to players on certain teams, and for me, the Quebec Nordiques were that team. Absolutely. On the blue line, Randy Moller, or Randy Moller, depending on how you pronounce it. I heard it both ways. Doesn't really matter. Randy Moller is a guy that I cheered for as he was a hard-nosed defenseman. He played a long time with Quebec, and he was, I don't know, he just seemed like the kind of guy who could play a little bit of everything. He didn't have the offensive acumen as a lot of defensemen had in the 80s, but very, very good defensively, very good player, and nothing but good things to say about him. And he had 1,000 penalty minutes in roughly 500 games played for Quebec. Also on the blue line, Curtis Lecision, because of course. I've talked about Lecision before, how he's one of my favorite defensemen. His kid is coming up as well, and got drafted. I believe it was this draft that he got drafted in, so I'll be keeping an eye on his kid as well. Curtis Lecision, one of the best defensive defensemen I saw for Quebec, and he was kind of a forgotten guy a lot of the time outside of, I think, the Quebec fan base, but I always liked him. I always cheered for him, and great defenseman. And, of course, goaltender. If you've been a fan of my channel for more than a week, you should not be surprised that Ron Tugnut's up there. Ron Tugnut's stats, if you look at his career stats, you're going to go, Shannon's lost his mind. Tugnut almost never had a winning season in his career. His stats were always kind of middling at best, and in Quebec, they looked terrible. They looked terrible because his team was awful. There was a 3-3 tie between Boston and Quebec where he made 72 saves on 75 shots. Or no, 70 saves on 73 shots. And he was first star of the game and got a standing ovation from the Boston crowd. The same Boston crowd that loved to taunt opposing teams, opposing fans, and are kind of rowdy drunks. So the fact that Boston gave him a standing ovation after the game said a lot for how Tugnut played. And the game itself, I mean, Quebec was out of it and it didn't matter. Tugnut played the same no matter whether they were in a race or not in a race. And he moved around a lot later in his career. But in Quebec, he was my favorite goalie because he played well behind a really bad team. And it's easy for goalies to give up. And I've heard, you know, I remember Rich Sutter talk about his time with Vancouver and saying it was hard to get up for games in Vancouver because to them it felt like Richard Brodeur had given up halfway through the season, and the effort wasn't there. And I never saw with Tugnut any drop in his level of competition, despite the fact that the team was really historically terrible. The Quebec Nordiques of the late 80s were really, really bad. Once the Stastny era passed, there was nothing to replace it other than awfulness. So the fact that I have a tremendous affection for them shouldn't be surprising considering my cheering for the underdog. And yeah, so there you go. I don't have a list of guys that I don't like from Colorado or Quebec. And that's the funny thing. Like, I don't have a least favorite in Quebec or Colorado. I could say Dale Hunter. I could. But Dale Hunter's infamous hit happened when he was a Capital. When he was a Nordique, he just, I remember a lot of fights. I don't remember a lot of dirty plays as much from Dale Hunter when he was in Quebec. I like Dale Hunter a lot. If I had a second team of my favorite Nordiques, Dale Hunter would be on it. But yeah, in Washington, he would be one of my least favorite. Because, the hit on Pierre Turgeon was bad. So, he's not on this board. Honorable mention to Mark Tardif. Honorable mention to Alex Tanguay out of Colorado. And, of course, Adam Deadmarsh. I talk a lot about Deadmarsh, how much I like Deadmarsh. I wanted him on the board, but I couldn't put him ahead of Kamensky or Hayduke in terms of time with the Avalanche. Deadmarsh probably shows up on my favorite Kings board, though. It's weird that way. Favorite players, not necessarily when they're on that team. Yeah, it's a fluid situation when it comes to me talking about cheering for players, for teams, and it can be confusing for me to sometimes follow it, but to me this makes sense. Let me know who your favorites were, both for Quebec and Avalanche if you can, just for Avalanche or just for Quebec if you want, and you can let me know your least favorites as well. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, and I'll talk to you again soon.